I'm like, I have
That
to
was
eat,
And they're gonna die.
you know?
pretty
You
big.
can't shoot them.
But, like,
Okay.
I almost was like, I'm not coming tonight. I'm like,
This is a special meeting of the Board of Trustees. It is meeting 16th of this particular year. To discuss, the topic tonight is to discuss the use of the American Rescue Plan funds that the federal government has given the first half to us, and then the next half will be next July. So if we could have the pledge with Trustee Savage, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Trustee Hammernick with the notifications of fire exits.
The emergency exits are located to my left and to the rear of the room. In the event of an alarm or emergency, please move in an orderly fashion to the exits and evacuate the building.
Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Hammernick,
Here?
Trustee Ziemba,
Here.
Trustee Kasevich,
here,
Deputy Mayor Stepniak,
here.
Mayor Peters.
Here. There's one item on the agenda, basically. It's ARPA, American Rescue Plan funds discussion. And if you want to just read what we posted.
Please take note, there will be a special meeting of the Village of Depew Board of Trustees to take place on Monday, November 1st, 2021, 7 p.m. in Chambers, 85 Manitou. The purpose of the meeting is to discuss the American Rescue Plan Act, and no pre-board meeting will be held.
Erica, if you can just open up the discussion, please.
Sure. Honorable Mayor and Board of Trustees, I make a motion that we open up the ARPA funds discussion.
You need a time? I didn't.
Yeah, 7:05 I got.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, so just a little brief background for those that might not know. All during the pandemic, there was talk of some of the stimulus money finding its way down to the local level, to local municipalities across the country. And while President Trump was in office and the Senate was controlled by the Republicans, each of those proposals that came up did not include any money to the local village, town, city, county level. Well, the elections occurred and there was a change to Democratic president, but there was still one other piece. The Senate was still in control of Republican control. In January 5th, the state of Georgia had their election for their two senators, and they flipped from Republican to Democrat, which then gave the ability for the Democrats, I believe it was 50-50 then, plus then the vice president would be the 51st vote. So at that time, it became more evident that there was going to be money that would come to the municipal level. And in early February, it was a number that was higher than what it actually turned out to be, but you got a pretty good feeling as to what the amount of money might look like at our level. A lot of it had to do with the makeup of our village population and the total number of population for the village. So initially, when county executive polling cards rolled it out to the mayors and supervisors of Erie County, you know, it was, wow, it could be carte blanche. There was no strings attached at the time. This was early on. This was mid to late February at that time. And at one point, we were looking at anywhere between $2.8 million and $3.3 million from the federal government. Not trying to tell you how they were going to give it to us, but it was going to filter its way down. It worked its way through Congress, and The number that was finally allocated to the village is just under $1.6 million, which is still a tremendous amount of money. Back in the early pandemic, there was numbers floated around in those early stimulus packages that might have been $805,000 to the village, which I thought, wow, that's tremendous as well. So they released it, half of it in July of this year, July 22nd, I believe. It came via the state, so the money came from the federal government to the state. Our village is not above the 50,000 threshold, which would have been a direct payment. We're at 15,178. So that came through the state. They delayed it for a little bit, but then it wound up in our bank account. And I think it was like 766,000 or thereabouts.
Yep.
There was a slight adjustment that came later, an amount of like $3,500 because one or two municipalities chose not to take it, perhaps, is what they said. And then the next half of it will be a year from then, so we're looking at July of 2022, and then the rest of it will fall to the village. So a plan for this has to be encumbered by December of 2024. The monies have to be expended, actually paid out, before December of 2026. And there are a lot of things you can read on it. There were strings attached to it. Some of the ones that were easiest to use were sewer, water, and network infrastructure for internet service. And start asking questions. I mean, we started asking questions of NICOM, which is our body that oversees mayors and villages and cities, trying to get somebody to commit as to what the money can be used for. And one of the things that posed to them, and finally got confirmation from all up and down, whether it was U.S. senators or New York State senators or assembly people, was that anything park-related could be used. So that's where we originally was one of the programs that we worked on since the July of 2019, was looking at putting money into Fireman's Park in the pavilion and so forth. So at this point, this is the best way for the group to get together and actually meet and discuss any questions that they may have to go through this. We just can't do it one-on-one, which is the only other way. Open meetings law prohibits that. You can't have more than two people discussing village business. So this is an open forum for everybody here to ask any questions. We also included the public, both live and then on our YouTube channel as well. So been a couple of weeks, almost 2 months, well, actually 2 months, more than 2 months since August 23rd when we first brought it to a board meeting. So I'm going to open it up to anybody that might have possible use of the money. Hopefully they've done some vetting of the project that they would be in favor of doing. And if you're local inside the building, come up to the podium, just state your name and your address, address the board if you had an idea, if you had a thought. First I'll reach out to the board members if they had any other project that they thought they wanted to present for tonight.
Mr. Mayor? Oh.
Yes?
I was just interested in, but I think we addressed it already, and that was for the dispatch office for the police department. And I think that we have addressed that, and that is going to be taken care of, so I'm happy with that.
Yeah, Audrey had proposed a redoing of the current dispatch office, moving some walls around and so forth. It's a very small space to begin with. The chief had brought up about moving dispatch across the hall to the conference room. Initially, when they did that, I know that my comment back is that you need to find a space where we could do a large pre-board. Since we've now gone to this YouTube channel system, there's really makes more sense to bring the pre-board into here, because then we can go back to broadcasting the pre-board meetings like we did during COVID. So there wouldn't be a round table like there was down there. So it would just be pretty much the way you see it, and then anybody else would fill in on one of the chairs. So it's a good possibility that we'll work through moving dispatch over and giving them the space that they need. Trustees, who wants to go?
No, just a question based off of that. If we were to move dispatch, where are we getting the money for that project?
Initially, we're looking at monies that have been in the budget that could be reappropriated. I hope that Chief Miller might be here because there was a possibility of questions that might come up for each department. At the, what was the meeting just recently?
I know he talked about like the auction items was like $30,000, so it's really only like I think 50,000 to do the project, he said. So there was 30,000 there, and then I just talked to Mary Beth and Heather actually at the parking lot about seeing if there's any grant funding out there too, with like the CARES Act or something that we could use, some kind of state funding to maybe get funds for that.
I mean, originally when Audrey brought this up, it was such that you could use these funds for improving the air filtration system, which is an issue in the smaller current dispatch. I mean, Chief, you sit in there most of the week, so.
I don't want to speak out of turn.
No, go ahead.
But that room, if there was a code inspection done up to current standards, would absolutely fail yesterday. There is zero filtration in that room. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 16, 17 computer monitors now in a room that's half the size of my bedroom. The heat in there is greatly, it's out of control. And then our only actual form of fresh air ventilation is the side window that opens up to the sally port, but we can't do that. And it's been leaking sewer gas from the sewer grate that's down there in the sally port for years. To the point where it actually registered on my fire monitor for LEL levels.
Leave it
So
at 3.
we can't even keep that open. I know when they initially just started discussing this, and again, we discussed this with the police chief in the back, where windows could be opened up. There was an old entrance there that could be knocked back out and the door put back there. And we would have some kind of ventilation system where we weren't breathing in sewer gas, or, I was sitting in the office and then one of the officers come and go, "Oh, what's that smell?" And it's not me.
There are some moving pieces in that too, because OEM is in that room. And there was discussion about, during the pandemic last year, the chief approached and the OEM officers that the OEM might become part of overseen by the police department. And that would make sense. That's already set up. It would be a part of dispatch area there. To answer really your question on the funds, Jackie, our fund balance is healthy. We're waiting on final numbers from the audit for this year. So it could come out of there. I mean, they've encouraged us to spend down some of our fund balance. So there's a possibility with that. We are looking at, like was brought up, Erica said, with the 3 police cruisers that were recently auctioned. Theoretically, that money should go back to that department. Because if you look at the money for the police vehicles, they came out of their budget, and in years past, we've given them $123,000, and typically that bought 3, maybe 4 vehicles. We cut it back as a cost savings measure during the budget during the pandemic from 20 to 21 to 80, and they were able to move on that. It only makes sense that the police cars were purchased out of that line, and now we've auctioned them off. There should be a way to get that back into the budget. So I think that there is some money in there that, and he's referring to that. They bought their vehicles this year, and they might be looking at be able to use some of that funds. When Chief Carwile was here, each year he would ask for the windows project that we just completed, that can he do out of his budget by removing some of his pieces of money and actually start the window project. we sort of discouraged doing that. It was better that we actually borrowed the money in a van and got the DPW equipment and the roofing and the air conditioning, the heating, and the windows all bundled into one. So this may be a case where we could take money out of the existing budget just by his savings as well. So a lot of it would be done in-house, in a lot of ways, with our DPW crew, so. That's long-winded, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I guess, based off of even your comment, it's something that I think we need to make sure is a priority. So that's what I'm glad to hear that.
So there are some of those pieces behind it, and they've been challenged to look at a couple different things. One is the move over. And another, being in the fire service, I see it a little bit more than maybe some do, is that there are times when dispatch is really overwhelmed with one person being in there. So I've asked the chief to come back with some numbers to see if we can't beef up that department. As an example, in 2019, September 2019, with the twin fires, Chief Rozutek was on board. And no offense to anybody that knows one of our dispatchers or who our dispatchers are listening, if the chief wasn't on, that was a very difficult call, difficult night. And it would have been nice to maybe have another hand there.
It's almost a life safety issue, because, we get hot calls all the time, and we're on the phone with someone who's not breathing, and we transfer it off to MERS, we're standing in the line for updates, and then the 911 phone's ringing again. Or has someone breaking into their home, we're on the 911 line, and someone else calls 911, which very well could be not a 911 worthy call, but we have to tell that person who's getting their home broken into that, hold please. We have to go and answer, and it happens more than. So it's just an issue with that, and I believe now we're only one of two that has one person left in dispatch. It turns into a safety issue, and all the main players across the country that are like the authorities, so APCO, NINA, everyone obviously recommends that nobody has one in there. And then the issue like we have now in our dispatch center, if we have to go to the bathroom, it's not readily available. We have to call someone back, and if they're on a call, I hope you got a good bladder, because it could be hours before they could get back to you. So
Yeah,
at least that was one of the things moving to that. There's 2 bathroom facilities,
Yes.
in that facility, so we don't have to make do with what we have in the office if we have to go to the bathroom in an emergency.
So I think we can also, if there is cost for air filtration, that can come out of this money as well for the new location. So I think that solves.
That's what I
Your
reached out to
question.
Courtney Ball, to,
Right.
that Mayor Peterson said to reach out to
You just open the window.
Courtney Ball. So I reached out to her, and she sent back the thing, and I forwarded to you
Good.
of her response. So,
And it's
thank you.
not a negative, like I said, that the police dispatch center is super warm and it's not filtrated. We are, and we have other people that come in and see, even officers when they come in and drop off warrants from other jurisdictions, they come in and see, what we have behind there, the building security of the building, the schools, we have access to all their cameras. We got the high school, middle school, Cayuga Heights, Sholey School, OLDS. We have access to all that for any major incident. It's live right in front of us. But of course, those are big TVs and big monitors that give off a lot of heat. That's the size of half of a bedroom, So it starts to add, and when you don't have that proper filtration, on a 12 or 16-hour shift, it becomes long. It's just a health safety issue.
Thank you.
Other side of the table, trustee Simba?
No, I'm ready to hear from the folks.
Okay. All right, so I'll open it up to the public. I got,
Jackie?
No, that's the biggest one that I wanted to make sure. So when I first came on as a trustee, I went to every department and spoke with every head to see what was their biggest need. And the police chief did mention that to me when I came on, so that's something that I am passionate about, making sure that we make it safe.
I think it, there's enough behind it to make that happen. And as long as we have a location for a pre-board, I think this is a good spot for it. There's been some talk of giving back the union office that your guys have taken, which was the old mayor's office at one time. It's not nowhere near that we can bring in a large pre-board crowd, but we could hold an interview in there or department head meetings or such. So I think the chief inadvertently has answered some of those questions. for that space. All right. I'm going to ask if any, a couple of you have any other project that hasn't been talked about. If it's about the pavilion, we'll hold that off, but if either the two of you might have something else that you want to present to us as a use for this, it's okay if you don't. All right. So tonight, it was an open, this meeting was open to our department heads, and I appreciate Chief Fire here and Code, Tony, Kevin from Rec, and Ken from DPW, because I think, you know, there's some questions that could be answered. If we had George, the electrician, here, that might have been helpful too. So I'm going to have our grant writing team come up. I have Heather Malone. Oh, we have Gene here too. We have the boss tonight. And we have Mary Beth, who does a lot of our recent grants. If you want to just come up, just give us a background dating back to when we first started to talk about Fireman's Park, which would be a summer.
Okay, I'm Jean O'Connell, and I'm the owner of the firm. But Mary Beth has been doing most of your grant writing, so I'm going to let her do most of the talking.
That's fine.
I just do all the reading of all these grants when they would come over my desk until I'm busy. But when we started, this was talk. It hasn't gone away. I think it's something that the whole community can benefit from. You know, we work for a lot of municipalities, and parks are really important to the voters and to the young people and to the old people. And I think it's a great project. I've seen many of these come and go and make lots of money for the citizens too when they rent them out. They do things with all the parks, facilities. Parks are great. And with that, Mary Beth,
Mary Beth, you can come up.
talk about. Okay, I just got a couple.
And Heather.
So as Dean said, parks are important.
So we have Mary Beth Willis and Heather.
Got it.
We will also tell you, as your grant writers, that New York State likes to build on investment. So to get something started at the park, we'll build on future projects for you. Did you want me to kind of go through?
Yeah, take
what
us
we've
back
already-
if you could. I know that,
Well, I'll start with the.
Because I
because
jumped
Gia
in,
was our.
Yeah,
So I
midway,
believe
yeah.
it was April of 2019. Erica headed up a public meeting at what hall was that over on Broadway?
The VFW,
That was actually a little bit
Buddy.
later than that. The VFW post, we had the UB students. is
Yeah.
that-
Yeah, that's what I'm talking
yeah.
about. So, well, as grant writers coming in, we actually had come in and done a needs assessment with the village. And Fireman's Park was something that was on the drawing board before Kevin became mayor. And there was a plan that was etched out, and then it sort of went in the corner and nobody really did anything with it. So we started talking with Kevin and the board at that time about reviving this plan. And there's a grant application called the Consolidated Funding Application, otherwise known as CFA, that comes out in May and is due in July every year. And that is an opportunity to apply for funding for the parks. So we put that into the conversation, and said we really need to start planning this park and get a new drawing done and see what you want in the park. So
So this is 19 and we were aiming for 2020.
right. So that was our original first talk about the park. Then in April of 2019, Erica headed up this public meeting at the VFW post, and she had a friend that worked at UB
Yep.
who had a class of students, was it like an urban planning?
Yeah.
Class, so they took it upon themselves to visit the park, get the lay of the land, do a presentation to the public. They came in with a sketch, the layout of the plan, and they presented to the public, and there was quite a few people there at the meeting. I remember Audrey was there that night. And they took they proposed to the people in there, what would you like to see at your park? What do you like about the park now? What do you not like about the park now? So everyone was able to take little sticky notes and put it on the plan, their ideas for this park. So then the students read it off, and, you know, people wanted to see more trees, people wanted to see the ball diamonds fixed, people wanted to see a loop path around for exercise, to possibly have an inclusive playground. So the public came up with all these ideas and put it on this with their sticky notes and everything. And so from that point, then Kevin got a hold of Liz, who is back there, from Donato, and she started working on these renderings of what this park could look like. And this is one of the concepts for the concession/bathroom center, and it would be a phenomenal asset to have in this park. It would really give it a kickstart, because with this facility, you could rent it out, earn some income for your village. You'd have new bathroom facilities, which if you visited the park recently, you know the ones that are there are really not so good. So this would be a real great improvement. It would also encourage, I know Kevin is great with all his rec programs and everything, and it would have, you know, a better layout for all these children that come into the park, people that come in for ball games and everything, and it would just be a real boost for this. So based on these renderings, then Mary Beth,
So that's where I came in when it came time to actually write the grant application. This particular program was on hold for an entire year or more because of COVID. So that delayed the actual application for a while. But then we came up with a 2 to 3 phase project for the park. So the actual grant application would cover phase 2.
Yeah, because, so just looking at the timeline I was setting up earlier, come in May and, April and May, it became pretty clear that we could use the money in the park from the federal government. So now you then came to us and said CFA grant applications are back on the table. Let's move ahead with phase 2, which is a 50% match.
50% match, we came up with a $700,000 project. So the grant application was for the $350,000. I think the biggest component of the application is for the new, what we call the multi-use trail, which will make that park completely inclusive. Strollers, wheelchairs, but even now, anybody in the park can't get from a ball diamond to the playground without going through the grass or traipsing through somebody's picnic. And so Liz came up with a great design
Yeah, Liz will be coming up and giving us more.
to address that, right?
hard numbers.
And to backtrack just a little bit, as grant writers, we know that the benefits of a park to a community are exponential. Economically, you will draw residents, you'll draw visitors who will spend money in the community, who will up your property values, increase your tax base. Environmentally, having trees and green space, drainage areas, that's all good for the environment, and then for individuals, for mental health, physical health, having a place to exercise. And also just to identify you as Depew. You're not Cheektowaga, you're not Lancaster, this is Depew. So the path was, we chose all things that were inclusive, accessible, and sustainable. Things that New York State looks for when we write grants. So we talked about the bike path. We're going to put in new lighting standards, some new playground equipment, and we're going to update some existing equipment. We're going to redo the surfacing through this project, make the surfacing safe around the playground, update that. There's going to be 1 new shade shelter, the drainage improvements, which we call a rain garden, which is a pretty way to say drainage, resurface some of the courts, and I think that's what we're going to cover on.
Yeah, so not to muddle this, that's phase 2 with the idea that phase 1 would be a piece that's moving forward.
Right.
We would find out about this in
December, if all goes as it usually does.
Right.
And I want to add a little bit of a caveat to the funding piece too. So we have to match 50%, but we can do, I think, what they call like in-kind matching too. So if we use our DPW guys to do the resurfacing of, the walkway, their salaries count as a match. So we don't have to actually have on hand $350,000. if we use our own resources, that counts towards that funding.
Plus, on top of that, too, I know, Jackie, your dad asked at the meeting in the summer, what about next year's amount of money? So they're matching 760,000. Well, 350 or 300, let's say if you guys could do 50 of that, you know, for the whatever services that might be, the walkways or what have you, that could come out of the ARPA money as well. And then at that point, if those two pieces have been finished, the village basically gets a pretty brand-new park for really no direct taxpayer funding. And there's still money left over. I know that we had talked about the Don Polsky, which is a big project for Audrey and her not-for-profit group, and, you know, we would hope to be able to help out with that as well. We feel, even though we're not, you know, the lead on that, it's an important part of the village makeup of this particular area. So
What is the total cost of the whole project?
that's where we're going to get with,
From Denard?
with-
Okay.
yes.
All right, you just have a ballpark figure,
Okay.
what we're talking.
Can I say something?
Gene?
One thing you gotta remember, if this grant is awarded, you have 3 years at least to spend it, so you're not gonna spend money all in one budget year. You have the ability to budget over a few years, so it's not like you have to come up with your match on the day it gets granted.
Okay.
The CFA grant.
Yes,
So that's really not really, it is and it's not part of the basic discussion tonight.
Right.
But just so that you see the bigger picture. And there's actually a third phase, which is the ice rink component, which even 2 years ago was the biggest chunk and not yet achievable or reachable, let's say.
Right, but keeping that in mind, if this goes through as the phase one, the CFA, you get awarded, goes phase two, once you start moving on that, and then maybe not this, obviously, probably not this year, but maybe the following year, because you'll be well on your way with park restoration, we'd put in for the ice rink phase, you know, so, and if everything's going well and things are being built and things are timely, they look favorably upon a village that's, you know, got their ducks in a row. So they like to see things achieved, you know, so they're not going to just say, oh, well, too bad we give you money, your parks, we don't care about the rest of it. They'll keep it moving to see you get to the end of your goal, as long as you're following their rules to get it done.
Okay, if anybody has any immediate questions you'd like to ask of our grant writers, that includes, again, this is unusual, but you guys can, if you have something you'd like to ask, do ask.
Please,
Oh, sure.
on the application, on page 4. Page 4, a statement of need, question Q976. The last sentence reads, construction of this project will create up to 10 jobs, and the park upgrades will retain jobs in recreation, maintenance, and program. So the 10 jobs that it'll create are the construction jobs to build it, correct?
Yes.
And then the upgrades and maintenance, so we can count that money as part of our match for the next 3 years, the recreation, maintenance, and programming, is towards our 50% match? Is that what we can do?
I don't know about that. I know we can for like building the actual structure, but I don't know about the maintenance component.
I only ask because it's in the grant, it's just.
Yeah, the grant, keep in mind, grant, and don't- if I'm speaking out of turn, slap me across the face, all right? But there's a lot of things that go into writing the grant to make it sound proper.
Sure, and that 10 jobs is based on a standard formula. The cost of the project
Okay.
will create
Right.
that
I
many
don't know
jobs.
that you can use the application to say, hey, we've got to have 10 jobs there, okay? A lot of it is to be successful in getting the money to put
Right, and
the,
that's an accepted formula. I wasn't sure if.
It wasn't so
question
much the
about
10
the
jobs,
match.
it was just a match, if we could use the money we're paying to maintain this new facility
Yeah.
think it's-
towards our
That
match.
would
I
have
think
to
it's
be-
mostly the construction part of it, which
Right.
would be DPW
The in
match.
kind, exactly.
Yeah.
All right,
Pretty
I
much like the-
apologize. What was the date that we'll find out if we got the grant or not?
It's
December?
Usually mid to late December, by
Usually.
Yeah.
Usually, I mean, you know, they're in
Nothing's
charge.
been usual the
No,
last,
I mean, it's usually come out in
Couple
mid to late
years,
December, but with the COVID and everything, you know, they might wait till January. We don't really know. They haven't given us a date.
Okay.
It won't be much beyond that, I doubt.
It'll be after somebody wins the governor until I'm sure.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, I'm going to segue then to Liz Megan. And Gene, I'm going to have to ask you, there's two laptops up here which have a PowerPoint that Liz put together, and it shows some photographs of this bathroom and the shed, the long shed, that would be demolished. On our YouTube channel, Gina, it's up. Okay, so I got it on both sides. Sorry, everybody doesn't have that, but Liz, so you were brought in, your company, DiDonato, was brought in by former Mayor Steve Hoffman.
Correct.
Back in 2011, 2012. And I know when I became a trustee here, that beautiful rendering was there. And as Steve said,
Happy to be back.
as Steve said one other time he was here, you know, it was over $4 million. It was sort of the Taj Mahal
It was.
of park pavilions, and it would have blown away anything that Lancaster or Cheektowaga had. This is more of a appropriate, I think, to the village of Depew.
We did simplify it, but I think it'll be just a beautiful addition and a very usable, you know, user-friendly space. It's multifunctional. But again, when we first started, we just, we walked the park, we walked all the buildings, and we just looked at the condition of everything and tried to help guide the village in terms of what directions they could go, where there was serious need for improvements. So, which, there's some pictures. If you want to like scroll through, you'll see, I had never been into the men's room.
Shocked you.
That was shocking.
Liz, I know that you brought me today some further updates on
Yeah.
pricing, and I made copies for everybody here.
I'll hand this out as well. These are, this is a presentation that's on there, on the laptop as well.
Thank you.
And then this is just, I'll leave this to either side. This is just a little snippet about the company, about DiDonato, in case you're not familiar with us.
So on the number thing, and I know Liz will address if you have specific questions.
Information about DiDonato, so you're aware of what we do.
So with the numbers, they've adjusted since 2019 to early 2020, before the pandemic, with the cost that health crises has put into play. And the numbers that I gave you back in August, fairly similar to those that are out in front of you now, were not solid numbers. And I know Liz has got some apprehension because you can ask for pricing today and nobody's willing to commit to something that's down the road a bit.
Right, so the program I used for this is RS Means. It's a pretty well-known program in our industry. They have their finger on the pulse of the going rates. This is the square footage estimate report that's based on a type of building. So obviously the specifics of your building, you know, will bear out a finer tuned number, you know, once we have every item selected. We initially, you know, we looked at making this a simple, you know, kind of a simple structure, but something that's very functional and very, that'll offer a lot of different options for the use. We situated it east and west on the site with these overhangs. I was a mom that sat here at all the ball diamonds, and not a tree to be found. It's boiling hot. You know, so that whole idea, I'm very familiar with this park. You know, my kids grew up in this area. We've used the rink. We coached the Saints hockey team. I was the administrator for the Saints for years and years. And that's actually how I met Steve Hoffman, the previous mayor. So very familiar, and you're just very, very excited to be part of this and to see it kind of resurface after this amount of time.
So I'm really here just to answer any question you have about the building. Obviously, like you said, the numbers, can change here as we move forward with the project. But it would really be nice to see something happen and to see the community get the use of this money as a whole.
Now, with these type of buildings, if we contracted, some of our guys to do like the electrical or plumbing, is that allowed? Or does it have to be, whoever we bid out to has to do
It
like
would
the full
just,
project?
So that would be something we'd work into the engineered drawings on
Okay.
this. So it would be some, like, we would still engineer it, and then it would, if you wanted to go that route, that would be stipulated in documents that it's by owner.
Okay.
So then,
So like George's department, I
Yeah.
think, would want a pretty good chunk of that business, if you
Yep.
would.
I'm just thinking like roof construction, like I don't know if like our DPW guys could do like some of that, to, like just save costs a little bit, where needed.
I think, the way you usually approach something like that maybe is to get the shell up and then, in terms of doing wiring and something that's easy to, because the difficult part is to try to coordinate it all with a general contractor. So
Right.
if you start breaking things out that are really major building components, it's really difficult to say, oh, are you know what I mean? They want it buttoned up and they want to guarantee the framing work.
Yeah.
So some of that, we can certainly discuss it and, see what the departments are willing to take on in order to save the money.
I mean, I think you, Liz, you built into this, we may handle the demo of the block
Right.
bathroom and the long shelter. I mean, that there are savings there. Or in phase two, definitely things like the walkways could very well be a DPW project. We have to keep in mind that we don't want to burden Ken's crew,
Too much,
yeah,
yeah.
too
They
much.
still- and they do a great job, I gotta say, with what you have to work with. I mean, everything I've inspected is kept well, It's just, the buildings are beyond their useful life, and it's time to bring them into,
Kevin's the one who's crew keeps a fresh coat of paint on the buildings.
Holding it
And,
together.
some of the other things we have to work into the project on the engineering side is we have to survey, and we don't have drawings, actual surveys of and I've reached out to the building department, there's nothing really on file for we have some drawings of the ice rink, but a lot of the original drawing files are not available to us, and even in terms of the whole site, how the drainage is laid out. So that's one thing we have to work in as well, is to kind of document the existing conditions. So we'll have a survey crew that would come out and document the entire parcel. It's right now, I think it's comprised of 6 or 7 parcels on the, if you go to the Erie County GIS, it's not even one full parcel, so, yes.
I just want to ask a question. On the pavilion, is it necessary to have 2 multi-purpose spaces? Is that something that
Yeah,
is feasible? I mean, is that something that we would be able to rent out to use? I'm just asking a question.
We just thought it would be better to have 2 since we rent out. Like if we had the space, why not have 2 rentable spaces versus just 1 for extra income? So that was kind of the thought behind that, because we currently use the current long shelter for like some storage. So we were factoring in like a little bit of, I think on the one slide there's storage and then 2 rooms to rent out. So that way we could just have increased revenue. And we
We
could
just think
then,
cost-wise, if that would.
I don't think it's gonna be like if you just cut it in half, is it gonna be half? I think, you can correct me on that one.
Yeah, no, I'm just asking a
Yeah,
question.
I think
Yeah, no,
there
it's-
would be a savings, but would it be, as an example, half? I doubt it.
No, I didn't mean half, I just thought,
Right.
I know that.
I think the idea was to just keep it as fluid as possible. So even by having, the way the overhead doors are, you could almost have, if someone didn't want, maybe there's a way to section it off. So if it's a smaller kid's birthday party, you could almost have 3 different parties on one side, and you could be doing a yoga class on the other side. It's really meant to be a very versatile space. You might be able to do a farmer's market. So we want to make it ample enough that it can, meet your festive, the festival needs, the idea that you could pull up food trucks on the side and have everyone walk underneath these open, the open air porticos.
On the multipurpose rooms, on spaces, are we going to, is there going to be like, I know right now that we have over there at the Fireman's Park, and we've used it for the firemen's functions in the summer. Enjoyed playing bingo on the inside, and there was refrigerators and different things like that. So these would be capable then of also having heating or cooling in there, is what I'm saying, you know?
Yes, these would be full year-round use.
Which would be nice too, because then, people could rent it out for like holiday parties if they wanted
Right,
to.
that's, I was just wondering.
Yeah, we definitely want.
Because I know we got a lot of functions, and we did a lot of parties there at the present pavilion, which were very nice, but over the years, it became a little bit dilapidated.
I know I had invited Holly from the group we work with the yoga, and, when the weather's not good and the ground's wet, she has to wind up canceling it, and, turns away 40, maybe 44 people from doing that. If that was, if we had a facility like this, they could use one of the sides perhaps as a...
That's what I was wondering, we would have use for those all year round.
All year.
That's a moneymaker, that's good.
Yeah,
Just
that's
asking. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions?
Yes. So this right here,
Yes.
this is the, I need to understand this. This is the picnic shelter with the prefab metal and foundations and slabs.
That's in phase 2.
Okay. We're not where it's gonna be?
Yeah,
Yeah. We're keeping the gazebo, right?
yes.
Oh, yeah.
So there's an area to go to the site plan drawing. So we have an area right here that's where there's, so it's gonna limit the parking that's adjacent to the soccer field and give anyone using this side a place for a foot. There's actually a little piece of playground equipment there, so there'd be two freestanding,
Versus over here with the gazebo.
there's gazebos right here.
Yeah, that stays.
Yeah, that'll stay. We're not removing anything. We'll just be improving and adding some shelters where we don't currently have any.
So right now we just have a gazebo. We want to add actually 3.
We want to add 2 more shelters.
Well, right now, people can rent out the long shed, one spot of it, and the gazebo. Those are the 2 rentable spaces that the village has. If the pavilion is built as it looks, there'll be 2 rentable spaces, or as Liz alluded to, maybe those 2 spaces could be partitioned for smaller groups. The one shelter that you see there is in phase 2, 1 or 2 of those, and the gazebo as itself would also be still there. So theoretically, we could be looking from going for 2 rentable spaces right now to 2, 3, 4 or 5 rentable spaces. If the 2 phases, get done.
And
And
this
it'll
will
pro-
be handled by the recreation department then, for the rentals and everything else like that?
Yeah.
That would all,
For that great program that we invested in
right.
a couple of months ago.
And what's nice too is that if the shelters aren't in use, like during the week, like if someone takes like their kids to the park and they need some shade, like, there's people who sit in the gazebo and everything, there's additional shade there at least until trees grow bigger.
Chief, maybe your fire department would come back. We could do
I've been-
installation, inspection dinner there, maybe?
Yeah, I've been in the department just over 20 years now, and when I first got in, we did a lot of our parties here, and even fundraisers. Our own members rented out the park for our own private parties and stuff like that, and it's unfortunately, and I'm in the same situation, just different. I grew up at that park. I played hockey for the Saints my entire life. I played baseball for Depew, Lancaster.
Yeah.
I live right next to it on Chateau Court now, so personally I'm invested because my kids are now invested. It's coming full cycle for me.
Yeah.
So I don't want to come from a biased standpoint on that end, but at least from the fire department end, it's named Fireman's Park. We want to take pride in our park. I remember what that used to be. I remember how everyone used to enjoy that park when I was a little kid. And now it's funny because we go to the baseball games and they call it the grandparents area. It's always in the outfield because the elderly people can't make it through walking through there because it really is it's in rough shape.
Yeah.
And I just I think the way the village took care of it for me to enjoy in my generations before me, I just think that we owe it to the generations coming up now. So they maybe leave their house and not do this and play on their little games and stuff and go enjoy the park like it's supposed to be enjoyed. So. But yeah, bringing back that to the pavilion itself would be awesome. And not only that, for the ability for the residents to rent that out now. That's the one reason, honestly, we left. I've been chief now in either assistant or head capacity for 10 years now, and we just can't afford tetanus shots for all our members. It's literally come to that. It sounds funny, but it unfortunately is.
Yeah.
We can't do that. We don't want to take the risk. We don't want to take the risk of someone getting hurt, especially if we're having a family picnic. All our kids are running around. There's nails sitting out,
Yeah.
and it just, it seems like a good project. Again, I could sound biased because I grew up there and I have a vested interest now with my kids living right next door to it.
Yeah, that's right,
So.
that's right.
Well, speaking as the elderly,
Yeah.
I know myself when I go to the park, just to the gazebo for different functions. When it came to the fireman's inspection, just walking on the grounds that are so unlevel,
Yeah.
I had to watch myself for my ankles or whatever. I was afraid of falling. I'm just speaking as the elderly, not saying.
I'm with you.
or
I walked the whole thing several times.
You know,
now.
so I found myself, it was very difficult walking from the monument spot all the way across the lawn to the street, for the inspection.
Yeah.
But I'm just speaking for myself. But
Yeah, we're just
elderly.
seeing these trails that they work into the parks. I know that's phase 2, but they're your grandkids can bring their tricycles. They're not in traffic. They're not near traffic. It just makes it I often do that trail that runs, I ride my bike because it's nice, the trail that runs to Alden off of Walter Winter.
Yep.
And you can put your headphones in. You're not worried about, am I hearing a car come up behind me? So that's what this is about, is to give you that.
Right, because by the time I walked from the monuments there to the street, half the inspection was over with already.
Not only that, but just from like a family perspective, sidewalks in the village are older, they're not new builds, so there's
Yeah.
cracks and bumps and, pushing a stroller, a bike, you're hitting something
Yeah.
every time you walk. So it's like sometimes like I just want to walk in the street, I'm not going to walk on Terrace Boulevard and, risk getting hit by a car. So I think from a family perspective, like an ADA perspective, I think this is something huge that we need more so than, like the bathrooms and the walkways to me are like our 2 top priorities for sure.
Sure. One of the other things we wanted to touch on is that the grant writers brought up about the water. So New York State really promotes water quality. So it has to do with our runoff, and you're probably all pretty familiar with terminology. And so the idea is that, that's one of the other items. It's, the rain garden idea is worked into this, so some of the spoils taken from the building, we might create a berm and or a swale to kind of create this planting area that will help with your water quality. So it's not taking the water right off the paved lots, that's all hot, sending it into the system. So that's one of the things that's worked into the project as well.
And again, maybe one other note to make mention of is that from those meetings with the public, there was an à la carte list of things that would like to get done. As an example, in this CFA grant application that went in, what was it, October? Or when was it submitted? I don't. July, okay. I know that we had to have the discussion, we would love to have that parking lot across from the gazebo, other than millings and boulders. And the environmentally friendly parking lot you proposed is just a little too costly. It was over $250,000 perhaps.
But maybe it'll parlay in with, as they're discussing,
Exactly.
the other improvements.
So there are other things on this menu, if you would, that can be picked and chosen and moved at a later date.
Yeah, you have a lot of land, it's a beautiful piece of property, there's a lot of opportunity for growth there, and, we'll see where the future takes it.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Any other, from the outside there, from the public? Anything, Gina, on the public at all? Okay.
Paul?
Somebody else, Gina, were you going to say something?
You're good, Paul.
Anybody would like to come up and just, and then you can, if there's a question you might have of Liz or our grant writing team, you can turn and ask that.
All right, this is probably for Liz. Oh, Paul Sprata, 58 Argus. This proposed the longhouse, I'll call it, The roofing on it, what kind of roofing?
We proposed a metal roof. We were looking at the other buildings on the site. So the gazebo has a metal roof, so we were trying to keep it in, kind of in kind with what we already have.
That's what I was going to suggest, because the other existing buildings now, they all need re-roofing.
Right.
Where
I know we noticed. Yeah, they're in good shape.
where the bathroom facilities are,
Yeah,
well, that building has been obsolete for years.
right.
The longhouse, and then that, I don't know if it's a garage storing near the pool,
Yep.
they all need roofs.
Yeah, they
Well,
do.
you put a metal roof on, that's going to last 50 years.
50 years plus.
And I think I brought this up with Kevin before about the cupola. Is that going to be functional?
I'd like it to be.
I would too.
He wants a light.
I mean, it's for ventilation, and if you put light in there,
Right, the idea was where it's situated, it's over the restrooms.
Yes.
And that hallway, so the idea was, you would always get natural light. So when you walk in, usually the lights now have to be on off. They turn on and off. You might be sitting in there and the light goes off, well, now at least you have natural light.
okay. Another thing too, getting back to the fire department, are there any fire hydrants in that park?
I did not notice any fire hydrants.
Not inside the park,
There's one right outside.
but there's exterior. I got the whole entire
Yeah.
map.
Where is it?
It's right on Terrace and area. There's
Terrace,
one.
yeah.
On Terrace?
Yeah, Terrace and area. There's
Okay, just a suggestion, never know what's going to happen, accidents happen when you least expect them. Perhaps one or two,
We could certainly ask
Well-placed
Chairman
fire
Maciejewski
hydrants.
about that,
Absolutely.
and then he could be involved with that particular part.
and then you were talking about the water gardens, the Village of Lancaster with their, extended, they're part of that. In fact, my cousin is involved in that. They're having a water garden there. You might want to talk to Lynn Ruda about
I'm on
what
the
they're
village-
doing.
I'm on the village planning board, planning commission for Lancaster.
For Lancaster? Okay. My cousin is Rich, Rich Grabluski,
Oh, that sounds familiar. Is he on the town? Around Lancaster?
Village.
He's on the village.
Yeah. He's not on a board or anything. He
Oh,
just,
okay.
he was like in charge of the planting downtown on Central and,
Oh, sure, yeah.
the new flower pots they
Doing
put
some
in
really
and all
nice
that.
job, yeah.
Selection of trees and all that.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Get him involved.
Yeah, I got a little involved in that. I don't think I have any further questions at this time. I probably will have more later. Oh, selection of trees, is that going to be, is there going to be an arborist involved in this?
You usually bring in a landscape architect.
Okay.
And they'll be involved with Erica's tree committee
Yeah,
as well.
And what'll be nice is, we'll know, how many trees we have and what we'll need, because we're gonna be doing that inventory, I think, in the next
yeah,
month.
because
or so.
that, as a park, I mean, there's a lot of, that's a
yeah.
big park, and there's a minimal amount of trees in that
Yep.
park.
Yeah, I was shocked when I really walked at how, because I actually walked around where the soccer fields were and everything.
Oh,
yeah.
I walked every inch of it and it.
We planted 4 2 years ago, which I know is not it's just a drop in the bucket, but we're
Yeah.
at least trying to strategically put them in some places that we knew there were a lot of sun, like by the playground, back by the pool,
Yeah,
like in the middle, kind of up by the fence on Terrace Boulevard, like where the volleyball court is, like some places where we knew it'll need shade eventually
Yeah.
when they get
and
bigger.
most of the existing trees, they're probably 20, 30 years old, they're sycamore trees.
Sometimes it's a.
So you
fun-
need a variety.
It might be a fun initiative as a fundraiser, I know Como Park has, you can fund a tree.
Yep.
And even, something, to bring to the public to say for your, you have a grandchild, fund a tree for your grand, and, they can say that's their tree and,
Yeah,
That's how we sold all the windows in the community center.
yeah, exactly.
Everybody bought a window.
Yep, get a little creative with it.
Paul,
Okay.
just for your information, there is a hydrant on the corner of Terrace and Erie, which takes the whole front of the park up, like where the volleyball court is and stuff. We also have a hydrant at Erie and Gould, right by the ice rink as well.
okay.
And then on 8th Street near Terrace, if we were to take something in eventually Phase 3, if there were to be those extra pavilions that are at the end of there.
Yeah.
On 8th Street and Terrace, just south of Terrace, there's a hydrant that we could take our large supply hose right into that parking lot.
Okay.
And supply everything. So as of right now, it looks good set up, but we would always obviously from a fire protection standpoint, want to reevaluate that as things move forward.
Okay, thank
And
you.
ultimately, depending on the size of the building, it may be required to be sprinkler, because it's public assembly.
Yeah.
So that's something. we-
Yeah, I don't think the square footage even
Yeah.
justifies that.
Yeah, I don't think we get
Yeah.
it there, but
Oh, back to the ball diamonds. Is that going to have all new fencing around the ball
in the
diamonds?
phase 2 project, we call for that.
Okay, and like on the ball diamonds, how many ball diamonds are there?
2 Little League and
One
one
softball
true softball, and then another one that
for T-ball or
Fergie built, no, for
No.
adult.
adult? Okay. Are they going to be similar to the new ones that are at Dawson Park?
I think so, yeah.
Because that backdrop is great. Plus the fenced-in area at, the outfield of the ballpark has that yellow padded top, similar to that.
Yeah, it would be all the black vinyl type fencing,
Yeah, yeah.
covered.
Black or dark green, I've seen it, dark blue.
Right.
I'm just looking for the safety,
Are you talking about the backstop as well, right?
the back.
Yeah, he's referring to the
No.
curved one to keep the
Yeah.
foul tips
Yeah,
inside.
right, the curved backstops. The one at Dawson Park is gorgeous.
I believe, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, that half of that is dictated by USA Baseball, and depending or USSA Softball, depending on what type of diamond you're playing on, are the new safety requirements for that. So
Okay.
that just might be a requirement that has to be there if they choose to host leagues that abide by USA or USSS.
I was looking at what's there now, this little,
It's the same when I played there.
we had a kid flip over and he got a hook down
Yeah.
one,
Yeah.
he's hanging with his baseball, the belt on the pants.
Yeah.
All right, let's limit our liability here.
America's Funniest Videos.
The kid's tough.
And getting back to Dawson Park, is that a village park now, or who's in charge of that?
The baseball diamond?
Yeah.
It's Lancaster Baseball Boosters Club.
Okay, so it's no longer Depew High
We,
School? has
no, it was
nothing to do
always
with it?
Depew, it was lately to be Depew Schools. I
Yeah.
think they're going to be entering their 3rd year of the lease to own, which is 10 years.
Okay,
After 10 years, another 7, I believe,
Yeah.
then they'll own that property. But Bruce and his crew have done a tremendous job there.
oh, yeah. yeah.
Now, the park at the end, West Dawson Neighborhood Playground Park, which is
Yeah.
currently being done by Ken's crew,
Yeah, that's coming along very nice.
waiting on just a couple
Yeah.
of pieces to the train, I think, to the train facility. And then, as
If
you.
you want it done right, it does take time, more than you anticipated. But do it right the first time and you'll save money. So, all right, I think that's it
Yep.
for now. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. We didn't have a time limit on you today. Mr. Hoffman?
Hello, Stephen Hoffman, 31 Ridgeway Street, Depew. I'd like to work backwards, so I retain my memory. So you asked about the roof and things like that, of doing work with the village. I would think you would want to gobble up tearing down that facility and getting that matched. The electrical, I think the electrical department would want to gobble that up as well. Plumbing and stuff like that, and the roof, get the shell up, to your point, so you're not stacking contractors up. So that's one part of it. Trustee Ziemba, you asked about, let me get this correct. Yes, the shelters, but
The payback,
yes, page 4. Page 4, whenever you talk about maintenance, it's typically an expense. You hear the word maintenance, it's an expense item, there's not matched dollars on that. So I wouldn't expect that to be matched. And then, I guess, thinking about this building, I kind of go back to, I grew up in the village as well. It's an opportunity to invest in the village. It sounds like everybody is on board getting what we want as far as the dispatch. So an opportunity to invest in the village, invest in our future. I stood in front of you a couple months ago and talked about the meaning of the park and representing the legacy, our past, present, and future firemen. This models that. And then wrapping up, Fire Chief, a couple suggestions. If you're in dispatch for a period of time, based on this building and that, you probably have about 4 air handling units. An air handling study is not that much money. You get Muhlenberg to do it, Danforth to do it, Quackenbush to do it. You know, it's $2,000-3,000, but probably about the size of the building, $3,500. As far as the sewer gas, you know, typically a dry trap or stuff like that, unless you have something going on down there.
There's a line that runs between Manitou and Sanilac.
No scoping, you know.
No, we flush it periodically, but, you know, it's a slow-moving line, and,
Yep.
you know, it is what it is sometimes, you know.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sitting there thinking, it's one of a couple things.
Yeah,
Just
it
like
runs right
Kensington when you
it
come
runs
around
right
the
in-
corner.
Yeah.
runs right underneath the
Kensington, that
building.
smell there all the
Yeah,
time.
gets a little heavy.
Or the airport, yeah.
But the air handling study is not that much, and you think about it, anytime you change a room size, change the structure, you really need to reevaluate that CFM, what you're putting in and taking out of that room.
Yeah, that's, I mean, obviously this is gonna be for the police chief, but from like even the code enforcement standpoint, it has to move CFM, or, you know, it has to be
Absolutely.
cubic feet per minute, and right now, and in the 3 areas that make up dispatch, the back locker room, and the room that is where the booking is, there is nothing.
Okay.
So that, I know it's a rhetorical question or a rhetorical statement to say, hey, let's get Muhlenberg Batch or someone in there, when we know the answer. You know, we know where it's gonna be, but it still would have to be eventually tackled, because that would be occupied by, you know, people, and there's no grandfather clause when it comes to public buildings like this, so.
Right, in the short term, is you may be able to balance those dampers
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
take some of that away.
Yeah.
And I'll leave you with this, you know, with COVID comes all these state mandates, they want MERV 15 filters and stuff like that. Our air handling units, based on any age, cannot handle that static pressure. You're gonna burn up motors, you're gonna burn up bearings. It's a great idea,
Much resistance,
but they
yeah.
can't handle that static pressure. So you're never gonna put MERV 15 filters in there, let alone if you could get them, the cost is gonna be tremendous.
Well, to that point, we were successful getting money for the senior center, another bucket of money that we applied for last year, and all 4 of the units are being replaced with new heating and air conditioning.
Yeah.
And all the touchless, and that's, your guys are doing that too, the touchless facility, the faucets,
Yep.
the toilets and so forth. So
Yeah.
we, out of the $750,000 that the county was doling out, we had almost 80 of it out of the 16 senior centers. So we got our fair share.
Questions, feedbacks? All right, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, and if I may, what we always have to keep in mind here, especially this building, it's a repurposed building. It used to be a school, elementary school, okay? Obviously, the design standards from back in the 40s and 50s, they don't meet what we have required today. Yes, we do need ventilation and dispatch. I highly suggest getting those lockers out of there. They don't belong there. I think that's a big part of the problem. We do need better ventilation, better heat, air conditioning, even natural light. I mean, to be under artificial lighting all day has to be depressing.
As a night
But
shifter, I can
we
tell
don't
you
have
not
control
one light is
over
on
that.
anymore. There's enough light for the 16 TVs.
And even with the pavilion here, the existing building, if that was operated by any other facility, you would be fined heavily. If you go to any county park that's within a 10-mile radius, Chestnut Ridge, Como Park, even way out to Emery Park there, all of those bathrooms, what we have right now, have been eliminated at least 25 years ago. Okay? Restroom facilities are very important. Privacy is important. And these buildings are so old, you can't even maintain them anymore. It is time to move on to the next step. The design is nice. I have a couple suggestions for some changes. Square footage wise, it's a decent sized building. Roof is 5,000 square feet, enclosed space is 3,000 square feet. It doesn't justify sprinklers. It's, until you hit that 10,000 square foot threshold, it's not even mentioned in any code. Never a bad idea, but it's not required by anything. I don't know, it's, with the progress that we've seen in the past 10 years here in the village, bringing in new businesses, new investors, the revitalization that we've been experiencing, I think it's a perfect time. We've been talking about this for 10 years. Obviously, the initial plan was a little pricey, but my personal opinion, if money is available, we got to take that first step. Even if it's half of what this is, you got to start somewhere and just keep expanding and dedicate an annual budget to it, only because it's a gem. When was the last time any of the fire companies had a family picnic at this park?
I cannot remember in the last 10 years.
You guys used to have family
All the
picnics
time, yeah.
every summer.
Yeah.
Play bingo there all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing.
Yeah.
One company or combined 2-3 companies.
As we had a past member say a couple of meetings ago, they used
Right.
firemen's carnivals there that the whole community could enjoy, and worked out. And that's always something, again, for the community to come together, something we do in the future.
Just my opinion.
Are there handicapped bathrooms going to be in that facility too?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
I'm thinking my currently no.
no,
Okay, no.
they will be, yeah, okay.
Okay, anybody else? Oh, Paul, was there
I had one more thing I was gonna,
Go ahead.
I forgot.
It's all right.
I got a little winded there. In this new proposed, the longhouse, are you gonna incorporate any solar panels?
If we can, it would be ideal, there's, we
Yeah.
just approved in Lancaster, believe it or not, a solar flower. It is it's a flower, it's gonna, approved it for, Commerce Parkway. There's gonna be 2 of them, and they basically are petals, and they rotate around a base, and, they're designed to follow, they GPS the sun, and it's gonna actually, 2 flowers are gonna run, they're 16 feet in diameter, and if there's no sun, and if it's too windy, they close up to basically half of it. And they will run this entire plant, so, I don't know, if we can work something in, we certainly will. I don't know if there's, money available anywhere for that in New York State. A lot of times there's some money out there.
Yeah. I just thought of it because we got the solar farm going up on Broadway there. Why
It's
not
estimated,
look to the future,
as long as you brought that up, it's estimated that, that farm, our commitment to that is gonna save us between $15,000 and $30,000 a year.
That's good. Adds up. All right, thank you.
Just one last question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Liz, I forgot. Total cost of the whole project, the ballpark figure?
So that's,
Well, that's phase 1, right? 800?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about today, is really phase 1.
Phase 1, okay. That's the 873 I saw, okay. And that's pretty well, basically, well, it could change depending on,
That's their estimate based upon the square footage and such. I mean,
that all has to go out for bids then?
when it goes out to bid, like you saw for the municipal building project, we had to rebid it.
Yeah,
We had to make some adjustments on what was included.
okay.
Even the, on the solar farm property, the remediation cost for the, our portion of it up at the creek fluctuated from our estimate at about 210 to a little over 300,000. So these numbers are just hard to nail
Ballpark.
down.
Right.
Yes.
keep in mind, this is a concept plan. Once we engineer it, push and pull things and, have final review of the documents and, try to bring it into where it fits the budget. That's the goal.
I see our community development director there. Did you have something you want to say, Andrew?
Sure, why not? I'm here.
Andrew Adolph.
Hello, Andrew Adolph, Community Development Director. I just would like a chance to put my support behind this park project. Unfortunately, the Fall Festival had to be canceled about 2 weeks ago because of the weather and the rain, which was very unfortunate. There was a lot of work put in, both by myself as well as Regina and the mayor. And it was unfortunate that due to the lack of drainage at Veterans Park, we were unable to hold it due to safety, as well as we didn't want the park to get torn up. So a structure like this would enable us to further develop the ability to hold community events such as a fall festival, where we know that we would have a space that we could rely on. So that's just what I want to say. It looks like a good project where we have the funds and an opportunity that we should take advantage of. So that's all I have. If anyone has any questions, I'll take them. But otherwise, thank you for your time.
I know when we were pulling the plug that day, it was a hard decision. I mean, the two of
Yeah,
you,
it was
I know
tough.
my wife had a little bit to do too, but the two of you put in countless hours.
A lot of work.
Unfortunately, that's one of those tough decisions you have to make. However, when you look at the rendering there, with the 20 vendors that you guys had lined up, 10-foot spacing, 100-foot on each side there, you've got all 20 of them.
Right.
And-
As well as we could have put, we had, 4 to 5 musical acts lined up, a musician, a puppeteer lined up. We had, a charity organization, the Western New York Superheroes, coming, and they would have each been able to take a turn inside, and we would have been able to have kids and keep families out of the rain. So, it's unfortunate, but hopefully we can look to the future and have things like that with a new structure like this. So, thank you, guys.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you for all your hard work with Fall Fest. Appreciate it.
A good basis for next year.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions? What about our rec director? This would be in your,
I don't have any questions.
come on, buddy, this is,
No, I got no questions.
you think you can handle this?
Come on.
That's what I figured. Just wanted it on record. Yeah. All right. Anybody else?
Kevin, I have one more comment.
Oh, sure.
We talked about trees, and since it was brought up, keep in mind that you will be eligible now for the urban forestry planting grant, because you were awarded the inventory grant under urban forestry in the last one. So I don't know how much of a part of phase one trees are, but you would be able to apply for a planting grant.
No, actually, regardless of that, we could certainly, Wednesday, I think, right?
Yeah. So, to meet with Lori from Davie and get everything going, so we are.
We're here to beat you all up, that's all we do. Get these deadlines done.
Okay, anybody else?
Between you and Michelle from DEC, I think I got enough heat coming in my emails.
Okay, looks like we've exhausted questions. Eric, if you could take us out.
Does anyone on the board have any questions or anything?
Any others?
No, I just wanted to thank the mayor for giving us the time and the opportunity to learn more about the American Rescue Plan. As you can tell, I put a binder together because I needed to take the time to really educate myself on what we could use the money for, so thank you.
Well, I think this is not easy to get everybody together, and we want to do it properly with the open meetings law. So I'm glad that, and I'm sure we're going to see some feedback as people watch the broadcast tonight, which will be great, and we'll take that into consideration too. And I appreciate everybody doing their due diligence in setting aside this time and coming up with questions.
All right. Honorable Mayor and Board of Trustees, I make a motion that we adjourn the meeting
At 8:22.
8:22.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. And I guess an official adjournment, that would be Darren and Jackie.
Honorable Mayor and Board of Trustees, I move to adjourn.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.